Hey guys, welcome to KGO Sports Talk. We're filming this one from Hartford, Connecticut, here on work for a couple of weeks. Anyway, might be heading to Boston this weekend to see Angier. Maybe Billy will be around and catch some football games. But anyway, wanted to dive right in here as far as just kind of looking at things. As far as this week's waiver wire, it's crazy to think that we're already in week 13. The year has absolutely flown by. It's pretty crazy. But as far as the waiver budget, like the big time moves this week that we saw, there wasn't much. I mean, there were a lot of moves, but as far as bidding goes, the bidding wars have kind of chilled out a bit. Scott Chandler being the big waiver pickup this week. I threw a bid in there for 0. Better luck next year, I believe, is Capron at 0, Beeman at 4, and the winning bid by Gordy at $9. So little surprised that Eddie, who had Jimmy Graham, didn't go after Scott Chandler. I would imagine that he's going to be dynamite this week and be getting a ton of looks. But Eddie did make some moves at tight end with Jimmy Graham going down. He picked up, who did Eduardo pick up here? He picked up Vance McDonald, who we probably don't need to bring up, and Luke Wilson. Though I did like his move with Luke Wilson, making that move, dropping D'Anthony Thomas, who I don't think he's played all year. But Luke Wilson, solid pickup. Guy has had some phenomenal games in the last couple of years. And I would imagine that if, Eddie's going to the playoffs, one of the interesting things here for our league is just the fact that we're at week 13, last week of regular season, and the only guy that's clinched right now is Eddie. Eddie has solidified his spot. He has not locked up number 1, though. So he hasn't won, the $400 for regular season champ. That is not locked up yet. As Reelman's mentioned through WhatsApp, he could squeak that out. He is the only one that is remotely close at points. Billy and I could catch him at, as far as record goes. But points-wise, Billy and I would need to go off for probably 300 points this week, which obviously isn't happening. So, did want to point out though, as far as Billy goes, nice run. Kind of quietly going through here. He's won his last 3 games, so Billy's doing it. He's got a little bit of waiver budget left. He's got 19. Kind of light on the moves this year. He's done, middle of the pack though, about 28 moves. But I like what Billy's doing. As far as Jamal Charles going down, Billy has righted the ship. He's been able to get through, picked up Gio Bernard, made some other moves, and he's right in the thick of things right now at the 4 slot. Eddie and I match up this week. I certainly give the edge to Eddie. My team's only averaging about 110, 111 points per week. Eddie is all the way up at 126 average per week. So Eddie's got a top 4 that is very tough. Cam Newton's been playing out of his mind. He's averaging over 26 fantasy points per week. Jarvis Landry, double digits all year long. Every single week he's in double digits. He's got 200 fantasy points on the year. Been really solid for Eduardo. And, of course, Antonio Brown. How do you forget him? Darren McFadden. So run DMC for Eddie as well. Nice pickup off the waiver wire there. So I give Eddie the distinct edge this week. But if you look at my team closely, you see the green matchups, right? So the green there, that means, as I'm sure you're all aware, green is good. Green means go. And green means play those guys. So I like what I've got. I do give Ed the edge, but I would not be surprised. Anything can happen this week. I would not be surprised if I did knock him off. So moving on, as far as just other things of note here, looking at the standings. Obviously, I mean, every week I'm bringing this up, but it's just it's blowing my mind that it's happening. And obviously we touch on the injuries that Adam's team has sustained. Obviously the worst injuries of anyone else in the league. But the thing that I want to point out as far as Steve's team goes is that he's in 7th place. He has dropped his last 6 weeks. He has made the most moves in the league with 57. He still has a little bit of waiver money left, and he can play his way into the playoffs. Steve gets a win this week, and chances are, with a little bit of help, that he's in the playoffs. So even though it's been, a rather historic slide, losing 6 games, he could very easily make the playoffs, and he's right in the thick of things right now. He's got the players to do it. So we'll see what happens there as far as Steve's matchup goes. Just in looking at it, Steve is matching up against Gordy. So this is a powerhouse matchup. Just as far as projections go, the anticipation leading up to this, let's hear some trash talk, guys. Speed Goats, projected 127, monster projection. Adams, just under 124. So this is huge. 5th versus 7th. Gordy at 5th, 6-6. Adams at 6-6 in 7th place. The playoffs have started, right? I mean, this is regular season, but the playoffs have started, and they start tomorrow, right? I don't know if these guys have players going tomorrow night or not. I don't want to go too long into this, but it's huge. The playoffs have started in my eyes. I need to beat Eddie. I am not guaranteed a spot. I'm in the 3 slot right now, just because I've had some luck as far as matchups go. The matchups have worked out in my favor. For guys like Capron, they have not. So for me this week, I need a win to secure my spot in. There is a chance, even though I'm at 3, that I could dump out, lose to Eddie, and because of points, be knocked out of the running. It's mathematically, that's possible. So it's pretty crazy. Playoffs have started in my eyes. Beeman, as I mentioned before, he could take the 1 spot. No one else has a guaranteed spot except for Eddie. Looking, across the board here, just as far as guys are concerned, the guys that are at 5 and 7 can make the playoffs. It's going to be tough for guys like Chuck or Ozzy, even Capron. They're going to need some help. They're going to need guys, as we all know, guys in front of them. They got to win their matchup, and they need other guys in front of them to lose, to get dropped down. And then, the perfect guy that would be in the best spot is, of course, Capron, because he leads the league in fantasy points, right? I don't want to do a video next week saying, Capron, I'm sorry, you had the most fantasy points in the league. So in my eyes, you played the best, right? You just had the roughest schedule. You had the roughest matchups. That I would feel terrible about, because in my eyes, if you have the most fantasy points, you really have the best fantasy team. You may not win the championship. You may not win the regular season. In this case, you may not even make the playoffs. But job well done. He's made a shitload of moves, and we'll see how it shakes out this week. But there's a lot tying in here. From 11, the only guy that's really eliminated is McKinley, which is unfortunate, because I feel like McKinley's made moves. He's got 19 moves on the year, more than last year. Got used $68 of his waiver budget. He won his last matchup, and he's at 4-8. So he's at 4-8. The guys that are at 5 and 7 are still in the thick of things. So it just shows we got a lot of parity in the league, from 12 all the way up to 1. There's no real dynamite team. Anybody can win week in and week out. The matchups this week are going to be very interesting to see how they shake out. As I mentioned before, I feel like the playoffs have already started, and McKinley can play spoiler. Right? Reelman's trying to secure himself some dough. McKinley could come in, get a W, even though his projections are a little down. He could beat Reelman. And, Reelman's projections are huge, though. They're at 133. So he's leading the league this week as far as projections go, and his team does look bulletproof. But McKinley, pull it out, man. Let's see what you got here in week 13. Because that's the other thing. McKinley's battling not to come in last place and owe that additional $50. That's another thing that's on the line. If McKinley gets a W, a couple guys dump in front of him and lose their matchups, somebody else could drop into that 12 spot. So there's a lot going on here. I see, as far as the standings are concerned, you've got a lot of guys at that 6 and 6, 5 and 7 spot. And that's where the majority of the activity is going to be. The 7-5 down to the 5-7. I mean, that's the bulk of our league. So I can't wait for the games to start tomorrow. I've got a couple of guys playing, and good luck to everybody. And we will see. I'm sure we'll be hearing from a lot of you this weekend. Take care, guys.